Dear students, we have been studying about the Mauryas for the past few classes. And today we will conclude about Mauryas. So now we are going to study about the coins and currencies of the Mauryas. Actually, during the Mauryan period, coinage was known. They were familiar with the concept of coins. However, barter was the medium of exchange. Barter or exchange of goods was the medium of exchange. And silver coins, known as pana, were also used. Actually, a lot of punch marked coins have been found during this period, but it's not very sure whether all the punch mark coins that have been found during this period belong to this period alone or they belong to the earlier period also. So it is very difficult to estimate the monetization of the economy. So only one thing we need to know is they were familiar with coins. Uh, the silver coins of this period was called as pana. However, barter system was the dominant system of exchange, and punchmark coins of large numbers have been found. But these punchmark coins are coins which have certain kinds of impression on them. And though this large number of coins have been found, we are not very sure whether all these belong to only the Mauryan period. So it is little bit difficult to estimate the exact amount of monetization of the economy. But however, we have to remember that barter system was the most predominant system during this time. Patliputra was the capital of the Mauryas. It was a great capital city. It was large and wealthy city. It was situated on the confluence of Ganga and Son rivers. So there are two rivers, Ganga and Son, and in the place where Ganga and Son meet, Patliputra was located. The entire city had the form of a parallelogram. It was 14 kilometers in length and 2 kilometers wide. It was protected by an outer wall made of wood with loopholes for shooting arrows at enemies. So it was a fortified city. So the entire city was covered by an outer wall, and within this outer wall they would have holes to shoot arrows um, at enemies. There were 64 gates uh, to the city and 570 watchtowers. Wide and deep moat outside the wall, fed by water from the river. Actually, there was a moat outside the wall, outside the outside the fort wall, and this moat was very deep and wide, and it was fed from the water from the river. Served both as a defense and an outlet for sewage. So this moat had two purposes. One, it was for defense, and it was also an outlet for sewage. Many grand palaces in the city had been found. Though we do not have these cities today, what we understand is from the writings of uh, the scholars of those times like Megasthenes and Arthashastra, Kautilya's Arthashastra. In these books, there have been descriptions about the palaces. And also later, when Fahian visited, he had also described the palaces of in this city. The city has had a large population when considering the population of those days, and the city was administered by a corporation of 30 members. Ashoka added to the magnificence of the city with the monumental architecture that he added to the capital, like the many pillared hall. So it was Patliputra was the capital, and it was a very affluent city in those days. And of course, I hope you all know that Patliputra does not exist today, or it exists in the form of Patna in Bihar. It is said that Patliputra is the city, Patliputra, the city, is today called as Patna in Bihar. Arthashastra lists the various arts of the period, including music, instrumental music, bards, dance, and theatre. Bards refers to people who tell stories with musical background, who tell stories in poetic form. Apart from these arts, there was also extensive production of crafted luxury products like jewelry, ivory carving, and woodwork. Especially stone carving should also be included as products of Mauryan art. Many religions, castes, and communities live together in harmony. There are no disputes among these many communities. Courtesans were accorded a special place in the social hierarchy. So, in the society, courtesans, people who were in the court of the king, acquired a special status. Their contributions were highly valued. The contributions of the courtesans were highly valued. Mauryan art, especially architecture, is especially considered to be Ashokan art and architecture because the reminiscence of art previous to Ashokan period, art and architectural reminiscence previous to Ashokan period are not available, existing. So whatever we get belongs to the Ashokan period, and hence we have an opinion that uh, Ashokan art was superior. But it does not mean that art was not there during the previous periods, periods of Indian history. Even before Ashoka, Indians were superior in construction, architectural constructions, and only fact is there are no reminiscence of that period. So, as far as Ashoka is concerned, he had a few forms of architecture, stupas. When it comes to stupas, they are solid domes of brick or stone masonry. So, we all know what a dome is. A dome is a round structure. Normally, we have in Islamic architecture domes on the top of the building, but here in the stupas, the domes raise from the ground itself. So it is a round structure on the ground. So mostly stupas were Buddhist and Jaina stupas. They were constructed to commemorate some noted events or sacred spots, and also deposit relics of Buddha, Mahavira, or other religious saints. The size and dimension of stupas varied from small structures from less than a few foot in height to 100 times bigger. Ashoka was a great builder of stupas. Tradition ascribes 84,000 stupas to Ashoka. 900 years later, Huanswang found hundreds of them all over India. When Huanswang visited India after 900 years of Mauryan rule, he found hundreds of stupas throughout India. Sanchi stupa is believed to have been built by Ashoka. So this is the picture of the Sanchi stupa. Sanchi stupa is in Madhya Pradesh, as you all know. It is a round dome rising from the ground. Actually, as I told you earlier, this dome like structures in Islamic architecture, we have it on the buildings, at the top of the buildings. Here in the stupas, they are constructed from the ground level. And as you all know, as I said earlier, two stupas were constructed to commemorate some important events. Um, or no important events, some sacred spots, or to hold the relics of religious saints. Um, so in Sanchi stupa, it is said that Buddhist relics of Buddha are maintained here, and likewise many stupas were constructed throughout India. According to tradition, 84,000 were constructed by Ashoka. We are not sure about that number because it is tradition. Tradition says that 84,000 stupas were constructed by Ashoka, but a lot of stupas have been there, and it is constructed over the relics of some Buddhist saints. Uh, so, this is regarding stupas. Apart from the stupas, pillars are important contribution of Ashoka. He has erected stone pillars. It is said Ashoka should have erected 30 to 40 pillars. Some of them are existing even today. These pillars are consist of two parts. The shaft, that is the lower part, that is the pillar, is monolithic, or it is made of one stone. It is polished, and it is polished to such an extent that many people mistake it to be of a metal, though it is of stone. In Lauria Nandangar in Bihar, there is a pillar, and this pillar is of 32 feet and 9.5 inches height, and the diameter is diminishing. At the base you have 35.5 inches as diameter, and at the top you have 22.5 inches as diameter, so it's of diminishing diameter. So from the base to the top, from the bottom to the top, the diameter keeps on diminishing, and in some cases the pillars weigh 50 ton. 50 ton is 5,000 kilograms. So if they have handled such a massive structure, and with such an excellent polishing, we can clearly assess, we can clearly affirm that it is of a great skill. They should have required great skills to have such structures. And this is the lower, we have spoken about the lower part, that is the shaft. And then when it comes to the top, it was surmounted by the capital. You had the capital at the top. The capital was nothing but the animal figures which surmounted the pillar. So in Rampurwa in Bihar, you had a pillar, Ashokan pillar, and the capital was the lion capital. In Sankisa in Uttar Pradesh, you have an Ashokan pillar, and the capital was the elephant capital. So elephant figure was on the top. And in Sarnath in Uttar Pradesh, the pillar has the four lions seated back to back, which is our national emblem. So this is the Sarnath lion capital. It is 7 feet in height. We have four lions standing back to back, and it is said that on the top of these four lions there was the Dharma Chakra, which had 32 spokes, and in the bottom the lions are seated on a drum where you have uh, the wheels in the middle, and these wheels are said to be 24 spokes, and this wheel has been taken for our national flag. So the wheel in the national flag consists of only 24 spokes, but in the Sarnath lion capital, the original lion capital had Dharma Chakra on the top of the lions, and that wheel is not existing now. It had 32 spokes, it seems. So now this drum on which the lions are seated consists of four animals: lion, elephant, bull, and a horse. So the upper part of the capital is elegantly shaped Persepolitan bell. See, we call it as lotus flower, inverted lotus flower, or it is said to be Persepolitan bell. Ashoka and his grandson Dasarada excavated cave dwellings for monks. In Bihar, in Barbar Hills, 16 miles north of Gaya, you had several caves excavated. Sudama cave is one cave dedicated to Ajivika sect by Ashoka. And apart from that, there was also Karna Chaupar cave excavated in the 19th year, which is a rectangular. The residential buildings in Patliputra were affluent, were excellently built. We do not have the reminiscence of this building, but from the description of Megasthenes, who wrote Indica, and Fahian, later when he visited India, um we get to know about these buildings. And Fahian describes Ashoka's palace should have been made by spirits, and no human hand in the world could have done it. So they were so intricately constructed. There has been very little contribution on the side of literature by the Mauryas. The literature composed during the Maurya period was in Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Pali language. So the most important work of during the Maurya period is the Arthashastra by Chanakya, who is also known as Vishnugupta and Kautilya. It was a book on art of governance. It has been divided into 15 adhikaranas, and each adhikarana has a number of chapters. Another Prakrit work is of Kalpasudra, which is written by Bhadrabahu, and again in Pali there is a Buddhist work, Katavattu by Mogaliputta Tissa. So these are some of the important literary works. And by 185 BC, there was a decline of the Mauryan empire. The decline is because the empire of the Mauryas was highly centralized administration. After Ashoka, the successors are weak and inefficient to manage such a centralized administration. And with the weakened central administration, what has happened was there has been several independent kingdoms which had arose in distant places. Uh, After Ashoka's death, the kingdom split into two, and there were invasions from the northwest. Many notable groups undertook military expeditions, established kingdoms on Indian soil like the Indo-Greeks, the Sakas, and the Kushanas. In this circumstance, the last Mauryan ruler, Brihadrata, was killed in 185 BC by his commander-in-chief Pushya Mitra Sunga, who founded the Sunga dynasty that ruled India for over 100 years. So, with this, we conclude with Mauryan Empire. So, this presentation has been made with the help of R.C. Majumdar's book Ancient India by Motilal Banarsidass Publishers and 11th Standard History Textbook of Government of Tamil Nadu. Thank you.